Hey everybody, welcome again. This is the Wholesaling 101, Fast Cash to Success. How you doing, Gavin?
Yeah, good, Joe. How are you?
I'm excited. Today is the last video, Gavin.
All right.
We did our best to try to simplify this thing as condensed as we could. And today we're going to be talking about closing the deal, actually making the money. And this is exciting. So again, guys, to get this mind map, text the word FLIP to 313131. Or go to flipmindmap.com, and we got some more goodies that we're going to give away to you in this video, but you can only get it if you have the mind map, okay? So go to flipmindmap.com or text the word FLIP to 313131. So in the last video, we talked about finding cash buyers. And even though it's toward the end of the list, doesn't mean it's the least important. I mean, that should be one of the first things you do right off the bat, start finding cash buyers. So let's say you found a seller, got a signed contract, and you've got some buyers. How do you close the deal? How do you make some money? This is really important, and it's really simple. It's important that you don't complicate this and don't make it more confusing than it needs to be. It is really, really simple, and we're going to walk through some important things to think about as you're doing this. But first, we got to say and explain a few things. We're not attorneys, okay? So we're going to recommend you find a local investor-friendly attorney to help you and give you advice on these things, okay? We're not going to share with you all of our contracts and stuff like that. Get a good local attorney to help you and give you advice. The second thing is consider partnering with a local wholesaler on your first few deals. The cool thing about this, and this is, I think, super important, and I do this a lot even in my own business. I partner with local wholesalers in other markets. Number one, they have buyers already, right? Number two, they know what title companies to use. You need to know that the title company is going to let you do a double closing or an assignment. They have the money probably to close if they have to, and it just makes it a whole lot easier. It takes a lot of the stress out when you know that you partner with somebody who's been there, done that, already understands this. So we did include in here a sample JV agreement that you could potentially use. We actually gave you two of them. These are JV agreements that, again, have an attorney review this, but it's always good to get it in writing before you partner with a local wholesaler. Okay, this is who does what, and this is how we're going to split the profits. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I also included a link here. I created a whole case study, a course called Automated Wholesaling, which teaches how to partner with local wholesalers, how to automate literally your entire business where you don't have to do anything. And there's a link in the mind map to that, or you can just go to automatedwholesaling.com to check that out, okay? Now, let's talk about potential brokering issues, because this is a big deal, and you got to make sure that you're doing this right, okay? There's no issue or problem. Let me say this. Wholesaling is not illegal, okay? You don't have to have your license to wholesale deals. You can wholesale deals with or without a license. It doesn't matter. There is nothing illegal. Don't let anybody ever tell you that it's illegal to wholesale houses. It's not. People put scare tactics, and they'll tell you you can't do it, but that's just not the truth. There's a right way and a wrong way to do it, and we're going to try to just break that down for you real quick here. Now, it's important to understand there is nothing wrong with assigning a contract unless the contract specifically says you can't assign it. So, and this is from an attorney, and I've heard this from several attorneys, every contract in the world is assignable unless it forbids you from assigning it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about this in a minute, but there's really two ways to wholesale a deal. You either assign or sell the contract, or you double close on the deal. You buy it, and then you turn around and immediately resell it. Now, local real estate commissions are cracking down on wholesaling. Don't let this scare you, but you got to remember local real estate commissions, every state has a real estate commission, and their job is to protect homeowners and to also protect realtors. I think it's a racket in my opinion, but that's just my unbiased opinion. I'm just kidding. But regardless, they make the rules, and it's important that you obey the rules. The real estate commission, which by the way is made up of realtors most of the time, like all of them except one, and every state is different, but you should go to their real estate commission website and read the code. On there, it says that you cannot, for a fee for somebody else, buy, sell, or trade real estate. Now, what the real estate commissions are looking for is the intent or the ability to actually close on the deal. So when you enter into a contract, you always use the language of I'm looking for an investment property for myself. Unless you're licensed, you can't say things like, I'll find you, Mr. Buyer, I'll go find you a house for you. That's brokering. You can't tell a seller that I'm going to find a buyer for your house. Or you can't say to the seller, you can't use these really bad weasel clauses. And reminds me, I should put some clauses in here, but you can't use weasel clauses like, I will only close if I find another buyer. Or so those kinds of weasel clauses you want to avoid. There is one important, I don't even like calling it a weasel clause. There is one important contingency that you should put in the contract. But basically it has to do with my closing on this contract is contingent on me having a satisfactory inspection of the property. And that's it. That's all you need to say. Or you could say the condition for me to close, the contingency for me to close is to make sure that that I need some time to verify taxes, title, and value, if that's what you want to use. But keep your contingencies really down to a bare minimum. Basically, all you really need is a 2-week contingency for an inspection. And that could be a physical inspection. It could be a financial inspection, like to make sure you can actually afford the house, you can actually get the money for it or whatever. It's okay to have those contingencies in there. And you need to make the decision whether you're going to back out of the deal or not before that contingency ends. There's a lot of wholesalers out there that give wholesaling a bad name by not closing on the deal. They'll tie it up, and then 4 weeks later, a month or two later, after dragging the seller out, they just walk away and they can't close. So you want to avoid that. So the idea is to avoid brokering issues. And again, I'm not an attorney, but this is what I've heard. You need to make sure you have the actual intent to actually buy it. And you have the ability to buy it if you want to. That doesn't mean you have to. You can change your mind, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So, but unless you're the owner or unless you're licensed, you cannot advertise the house. You need to advertise the contract. Okay? And another important thing is you always have to give full disclosure. If you are licensed or if you're not, always give that disclosure to the seller, to the buyers. Listen, I am an agent. I'm not an agent. I'm representing myself. I'm not letting anybody else represent me, etc. The other thing is you have to have the owner's permission to show the house. It has to be in written permission. And you should have the capability to close the deal, like I already said. And I actually recommend that you consider getting your license. I have my realtor's license with Keller Williams. It's a great company. I like them a lot. There's a lot of good brokers out there. Gavin doesn't have his license. No. I know a lot of wholesalers that don't, and I know a lot of wholesalers that do. So there's advantages and disadvantages to both. In my opinion, I think the benefits outweigh the costs, but to each his own. I would suggest you get your license, consider it, and it'll help you avoid. Now, it's still, I'm not saying like because you have your license, you're carte blanche to do whatever you want in wholesale houses, any way you want. But you still have to be real careful and make sure you follow the rules. Okay, and if you get a broker, make sure you get a broker that is investor friendly. I don't want to scare you guys into thinking that, oh my gosh, the real estate license police are going to come after me if they catch me wholesaling or whatever. Listen, wholesaling is not illegal. It's not immoral and it's not fattening. It's a great way to make a lot of money in this business. You just have to make sure you're doing it above board and you're doing it the right way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll just to add on that as well. I think this is when people come in, they focus way too much in this area. Yeah. You have to really just think about the basic things that Joe's just talked about. Making sure that you have an inspection period, making sure that your decision's made if you're going to buy the deal or not within that inspection period, that you can assign the contract, and you have the capability or something in place that you can close on the deal, and that's pretty much it. Right?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't got my license because I partner with people, so that's the reason. I'm not looking to do a deal start to finish. I never have. I'm not set up that way. I don't see property. So back to our point earlier about partnering with wholesalers, that's what I do. I partner with other people. I even use their contracts. Yep. Okay, so I haven't got to worry about all this. It takes all that away. That's why I can do deals in multiple states.
And I have talked to multiple different real estate commissions about this issue on the phone, and they all say pretty much the same thing. Every state is about the same. where they don't have any problem at all. Once you close on that deal, you can sell it and advertise it for sale by owner, no problem at all. It's that little area in between of when you get it under contract and when you actually buy it. You have to be careful with that and how you do it. So we're going to show you how to get the money, which, by the way, getting the money is way easier than you might think. It's super easy, especially if you've got a good deal. So finding the money is easy. If you got a good deal, the money will come. All right. Now we're going to talk about two main ways to close a deal. Like we already said, there's assigning the contract and there's the double close. Now, assigning the contract, we're going to recommend that you avoid daisy chains. Now, what does the daisy chain mean? And you see this a lot. A lot of investors gripe and complain about it. A daisy chain is when one investor gets a property under contract and they start advertising the contract, and then another investor marks up a fee on top of that and advertises that contract for a higher price than someone else, and then they try to bring a buyer, and there's 3 or 4 people deep back to the original seller. Though you want to avoid those deals like the plague. That spells trouble, and it's just don't do it. You always want to be the only one between the seller and the buyer. Okay, we talk about an A to B and a B to C at the very beginning, if you remember. You have a contract A to B with the seller, where you're B, the seller's A. And then you have another contract between you and the end buyer, the investor, the B to C, the C being the end buyer. Okay, so no daisy chains. And I'm going to pause this video right now and put an assignment agreement here in this mind map for you to look at. So hold on one second. Okay, so here we go. I just put it in there. This is the assignment agreement. It's just a simple one-page agreement that says, for a fee, I'm assigning this contract to you. And all you need to do is when you get the original contract with the seller, you're going to give that to the title company. And then when you find a buyer that you want to sell your contract to, you're going to fill out an assignment agreement with you and the buyer. And sometimes you have the seller fill it out. But then you give that to the title company as well. Now, the title company, if it's an investor-friendly title company that's done these kinds of deals before, they will have maybe their own contract that they would rather use. Not a big deal. I would just use, if you have another buyer, if your buyer that you're selling it to has a better contract, use that one. Doesn't matter. A lot of times when I'm coming into these deals, especially in new markets, I will just ask the title company or ask the closing attorney, how do you recommend we do this? You know, I was going to buy this thing, but now I've decided not to. I just want to sell my contract. How do you recommend I do that? And they'll tell you, well, this is one way you can do it, or this is another way you can do it, which is cool. One of the things that I've never done before, but I've heard of other people doing, is they will buy a contract in the name of an LLC and then sell the LLC to somebody else at closing for $5,000, $10,000. That new buyer now owns the LLC and continues to buy the property in the name of that LLC, if that makes any sense. But I don't want to get too deep into the weeds in that. Assignments are definitely the easiest. Some people ask, well, when should I double close and when should I do an assignment? Generally speaking, as a general rule of thumb, if you're going to make less than $10,000, just do an assignment fee. If you're going to be making over $10,000, I would recommend doing a double close. Okay? So in the mind map is the link to that assignment agreement that you could use. Now, if you do a double close, it's real simple. You buy it. So let's say you have a contract to buy it. Your contract is June 1st. You have a contract to close July 1st. So on July 1st, you also have another contract that your end buyer will buy it on that same day. So sometimes, it used to be easier than it is now, but sometimes the end buyer's money will fund the first transaction, but that's getting harder and harder to do. So again, what I'm going to suggest you do is find a good local investor-friendly title company or closing attorney. Tell them what you're trying to do and ask them, hey, what's the best way to do this? And they'll give you their advice. So ask around your local real estate clubs, ask other wholesalers, ask some of your cash buyers, and just start building a network. And sometimes I've seen this over and over again where the investor-friendly title companies will change over time. And you just got to be, it's so important to network. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about getting the money first. I'm going to bump this up into my map. Getting the money, let's say, remember we talked about the intent and the ability to close. So you need money sometimes to close. Well, there's different ways to do that. One of the things that I really like and I recommend that you guys would consider is getting business lines of credit or getting credit cards, business credit cards. I've recently done a podcast and a webinar with these guys. And it's an amazing company, and what they do. And for my students, they've gotten over $3.5, almost $4 million in business credit for people. And the coolest thing about having business credit is because it just fixes all these issues. When you're talking to that seller and you're worried about whether you'll be able to close or not, you actually know for a fact you have money in Hip Pocket National Bank that you could close on this deal if you had to right away. And so I would encourage you to listen to this podcast, listen to this webinar that I did with these guys as we talk about it. And there is a fee for it, but it's very, very, it's a great idea. It's very important that you consider doing this because you can get business credit cards. You don't have to use it. And a lot of them come with 0% interest for the first year or something like that. But you definitely want to check that out. And these guys that do this will also help you negotiate. So they may, a credit card or business line of credit may only approve you for $5,000. Well, they keep on coming back every month to ask for more and more. And I've seen this a lot of times where those $5,000 credit lines will increase to 20 to 30, 50,000 or more. Hard money lenders, they're everywhere. All you need to do is start networking with your local real estate investment club, talk to other investors, and you'll find some really good local hard money lenders. Transactional lending. This is important. Transactional lending, and again, you'll find people in your local real estate investment club that can lend money, but these are companies that will lend money for 1 or 2 days, maybe 3, it's kind of like bridge financing almost, where they will lend you the money to buy the deal and close on it as long as you have an end buyer to buy it. And so sometimes this helps when you're dealing with banks. So you have to close on the deal first. There's a company I recommend by a real good friend of mine, and I gave you the link in the mind map to contact him. His name is Brian. I'm not going to give you his website because I want you to get the mind map, okay? Remember, how do you get the mind map? Text the word FLIP to 313131 or go to flipmindmap.com. I don't get any money or I don't get any affiliate referral fees for recommending this guy. His name is Brian, a really, really cool guy. And go to the link in the mind map to get his website. Okay, now let's talk about private money. There's a great course called Private Money on Demand. I'm really going to highly recommend it. There's a link to that course in the mind map. The cool thing about this course is it tells you who has been lending money in the past, how do you find them, and how do you contact them, and how do you find new private lenders by looking into the county records. There's also a really good book. I think it's called Getting the Money, and there's another link to that book here in Amazon. And this link is to that product called Private Money on Demand. A good friend of mine that I know and trust created that course. I highly recommend it. It's like $97. It's really, really simple, and it's really good. Check that out and get that book. Now, once you get a property under contract, finally, it's important to start marketing the contract right away. And we talked about this in finding the buyers, but these are important to understand. Number 1, signs. Signing the yard, signs in the neighborhood. Craigslist. Advertise the house on Craigslist. Motivated, desperate seller, need to sell now. Yellow letters. And by the way, I gave you before, if you remember in the mind map in previous videos, sample signs, sample things you can put on Craigslist. Also, the yellow letters to nearby investors. It just basically is a letter that says, help, desperate, I'm desperate, I need to sell this house now, please help me. Make it sound desperate, handwritten, crumple the letter up, put it in an envelope, first class handwritten invitation envelope, and mail it to all the investors that are nearby, and your phone will ring off the hook. It's a great letter. Call nearby landlords, call realtors of recent investor transactions. So those things I've talked about before in the finding the cash buyers, but once you get a property under contract, immediately, the same day, start marketing the home. I mean, like, go all out. Don't be timid. Don't be shy. Don't be afraid. Do signs, Craigslist ads, contact nearby investors, call realtors. Do everything in your power relentlessly because you're up against the clock. You only have a 2-week inspection window. Right? So you got to start advertising right away. Now, finally, what if you can't close? So you need to make sure you have at least a 2-week inspection contingency. Some sellers try to get that down. Sometimes I'll do a 15-work-day inspection contingency. So that's 3 weeks. But you want to make sure you have an inspection contingency. And you don't need to add any other kinds of weasel clauses in that contract. It's an inspection. You're going to inspect it by your contractor. You're going to inspect it by your financial partners, your business partners, your contractors, the termite company, the radon company, the roofing company, the lateral sewer plumbers. You want to make sure that you get your team in there to inspect the property. And for whatever reason, if you feel like, you know what, the shingles are too old, you can back out of the contract during that inspection contingency. So during this inspection contingency is when you want to make sure that you have an actual marketable contract that you can assign or sell. Now, it's really important then to have buyers that are already in your back pocket that can come look at the house. Now, let's say you have to back out. People get really nervous and scared about that. This is a good time. It's okay. And I like to say, blame it on the 3 R's. You could say, well, the retail value or the resale value, let's say retail, is not as high as I thought it was. You could blame it on the rents. The rents are not as high as I thought they were, and you can also blame it on repairs. It needs more work than I thought it needed. So the numbers don't lie. Just blame it on the numbers, and that's totally fine. But then what do is you either cancel the contract or renegotiate a lower price. And people forget about this. I'm not saying that you should always try to renegotiate. I know some wholesalers do that. Every time they close on a deal, they go back to the seller and try to renegotiate to get another haircut. Don't do that. I don't recommend you do that at all, okay? But if you really do need to renegotiate, it's okay to ask for the seller to lower their price. Cool. What do you want to add something to that, Gavin?
Yes. Yeah, I was just going to say, with the renegotiations, if you have to, make sure you only do it once and you know what you're renegotiating to, okay? That's the key. If you have to go back a second time, you're very lucky to keep that deal because now they're going to be upset. You've already renegotiated once and then you got to go back again. I'm not saying it can't be done, but you're going to get way more respect by knowing exactly what you're going to go to. Again, talk to the buyers. Why won't they buy it? Is it location, price? What will they buy it at? As soon as you know the number, I don't care if it's 40,000 it's got to move or not. You want to know that's your number. Anything under is yours. And then you go in, one negotiation, and try and get that price lower.
Yeah, so this is a really good point. And this is super easy. Don't complicate this. If you get a good, sweet deal, they're easy to sell. So just make sure you start thinking about building your team. Good wholesalers to partner with, hard money lenders or transactional lenders, good title companies, other wholesalers. But, it's a little scary maybe at first, but once you do your first deal, man, it's just so cool. And there's always going to be challenges. It's never easy, but it's always a lot of fun. I enjoy this business. I love wholesaling, make great amount of money doing it. And so it's awesome. Now, if you want to learn more about marketing, automation, and delegation, I think there's 3 keys to success in this business. To sum up everything that we talked about, we put together a webinar that I want to invite you to go to. And in the mind map, you can click the link to go to that webinar. But we talk about in this webinar the 3 keys to success: marketing, automation, and delegation. We'd love to invite you to the webinar. Check it out. Completely free. And the link is in there in the mind map. So good. Thanks, Gavin. This has been fun.
Joe.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Thanks, guys.
We'll see you all later. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.